This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to W.e.b. News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is A.L.L, and I represent ICE4, a student association here on campus. But before we get started, I'd like to say a special thank you to the SBAC for sponsoring this, and I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know most of you guys came out here because you guys support what Dr. Umar Johnson is saying, but like oftentimes when these things are going on in society, like I know sometimes I feel helpless, and I'm like, I want to get involved in something. So I didn't want to waste this platform right here because I know there's a lot of conscious people out there. So there's an email list out back if you're interested in more stuff like this and you want to get involved in the community and you want to start building stuff. Yeah, just please sign up in the back, and yeah, we can start doing things together. But yeah, that's it. Here's Dr. Umar Johnson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies, if there are any. It's an honor to be here at the University of Tennessee. I want to thank Brother Emmanuel and the African Student Association and all the other departments here on campus that made it possible for me to be here on this third night of 2016 Black History Month. This is my second visit to Knoxville. My first visit was approximately 3 years ago. I've also been to Memphis a couple times. Last year I was keynote speaker for the Martin Luther King celebration in Chattanooga. And about 2 years ago I was at Fisk University, so probably my fifth or sixth visit to Tennessee, only my second to Knoxville. For those who are not familiar with me, I'm Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. I'm also a school psychologist, an educator, and a political scientist. In Philadelphia, throughout Pennsylvania, I work as a school psychologist. I service charter schools, public schools. I work with special ed attorneys. I help parents. I work with superintendents, so forth and so on. Tonight's topic is about Pan-Africanism, the rise, fall, and redemption of the Africa for the Africans movement. I guess I'm a pretty good candidate to speak on such a topic, since I am a Garveyite, since I am a blood relative of the greatest black leader in American history, his name being Frederick Douglass, who was a companion and often adversary to many of the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. In addition to that, I am former Minister of Education for the largest black organization in modern history, which was founded and led by the most successful black leader since Frederick Douglass, and he is none other than the Provisional President of Africa, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey. As I talk about Pan-Africanism, I'm going to do so within the context of everything else going on in Black America and throughout the African world. First thing that has to be talked about is this movement called multiculturalism. This thing called a post-racial society. First of all, let us be honest. A society based on race can never be post-racial until it no longer exists. Let us be clear about that. One thing we know about American society, or any racist society, is whenever they want to become more racist, they will act like they're becoming less racist. So when you hear someone saying post-racial, that simply means that we're going to refine and revamp our racism. In other words, the new racism is to act like there is no racism. And then on top of that, structural racism has come up with other modern forms of systematic discrimination. One of them is called multiculturalism. How can multiculturalism be racist? What could be wrong about respecting, accepting, and honoring all of the diverse cultures that make up America? Actually, there's nothing wrong with that. But multiculturalism actually became an attack on the African-centered approach to the study of history. There was no multiculturalism until there was a push for African-centeredness. It was the Afrocentricity movement and the African-centered movement that gave rise to multiculturalism. In other words, we don't want to acknowledge the fact that every science we study, every religion we belong to, every artistic form we participate in came out of ancient African Nile Valley culture. We don't want to acknowledge that the same people who we throw in prison, the same boys who get murdered by the police who suffer no type of repercussions for their behavior, are the exact same people who gave us high culture, are the exact same people who built the world's first universities, who are the exact same people who were the first to map out the universe. We don't want to acknowledge that. So what we're going to do is take attention away from the unique contributions of African people, not only in world history, but particularly in American history. And we're going to do that because we're going to say, studying the contribution of Latino, Arab, East Indian, Native American, women, LGBT, etc. and etc. We're going to focus on the unique contribution of every non-white and or minority group in America. There's only one problem with that. Those other groups did not build this. Black people did. Right. There's only one problem with that. None of those other groups were ever systematically considered not to be human beings. Black people were. None of those other groups were ever forbidden to get an education in this country. Black people were. So therefore, when you try to influence African Americans to say, fall in and blend in with the multicultural movement, those of us who know who we are and the role we've played in American history, we reject that because we see it for what it is, which is a new form of racism. See, under racist philosophy, the black agenda can never be the primary agenda. They must always find a strategy to get the attention off of the African American and put it on something else. So instead of fighting racism, we're going to fight for multiculturalism. Instead of fighting racism, we're going to fight for feminism. Instead of fighting against racism, we're going to find some other convenient fight to replace it with. That doesn't mean that they don't want to suppress LGBT. That doesn't mean they don't want to suppress the Latino issues. That doesn't mean that they don't take issues with the others. But what it does mean is we never want to systematically address the disproportionality that African Americans face, because if we do, we would have to restructure American society. It is more convenient to accept the LGBT issue. You're not fighting racism, you're fighting sexual discrimination. It's more comfortable to accept the feminist fight. You're not fighting racism, you're fighting feminism. They will put the attention on anything in the country except giving black people an equal economic share of America's wealth. I am a Garveyite. What exactly does that mean? And I want our white students and non-African men and women who are here tonight to listen to me well. Because you may take issue with some of the things that I say. And I don't have a problem with that. But I want to make sure you take issue with what I said and not what you think I meant. So I want to be very, very specific when we speak, because when a lot of non-African people see the red, black, and green flag, they think the red, black, and green flag stands for white hate. They think the red, black, and green flag stands for segregation. When they see the red, black, and green flag, they think it stands for some sort of racial war or racial clash. The red, black, and green flag, which is the flag of Pan-Africanism, isn't about hating anyone. That flag was created in New York City, 1920, by Marcus Garvey and the Pan-African nationalists. And the reason they invented the red and the black and the green flag was because at the time of Marcus Garvey's first international convention in New York City, 85% of the African world was colonized by white folks. You couldn't find a Caribbean island that wasn't owned by white folks. You couldn't find an African country except Ethiopia that wasn't colonized by white folks. In fact, there was a popular song at the time about African people which was called "Every Race Has a Flag Except the Coon." We were made fun of. They laughed at us. They said, "Where's the land of the blacks? Everyone else has a homeland. You don't. Yours been taken and stolen," which caused low self-esteem in African people. A low self-esteem that we still suffer from today. Because guess what, black folk? Every one of you sitting here, most of you, are psychologically homeless. You are psychologically homeless. You hate where you come from. It will never be accepted by where you are. So you're psychologically homeless. It doesn't matter how many 4th of Julys you celebrate. It doesn't matter how many President's Days you celebrate. It don't matter how many times you pledge the flag to the United States of America. You know at the core of your being, you are not American and never will be accepted as such. So Garvey gave us the red, black, and green flag. Red represents the blood of African people. And why is red the first color on the flag? Because not all African people are of dark complexion. You look around this room, you got Africans of every hue. Yes, some of that has to do with slavery. The unrestrained rape of African women. Okay? But not all of it has to do with that. You can study African culture. You could go with me with Africa this summer, to Africa this summer. I'll talk about that in a minute, where you see that even amongst Africans who've never had European incursion, you still get a myriad of colors. We come in every flavor. So to say that black skin makes you an African is inaccurate. In fact, that comes from racist ideology that stems from when the first Europeans came to Africa. They came to West Africa. And what do we know phenotypically about West Africa? They are the bluest, jet blackest Africans on the continent. So the whitest man met the blackest man. And he assumed that all Africans on the continent were of a dark hue, which was not accurate. So blackness is not based on your color. It is based on the blood in your veins, the DNA. But I'm going to go a step further. As a Garveyite, in order to be an African, it's not simply having the DNA of the mother continent, the chromosomes of the mother continent, the ancestry of the mother continent. To be an African, you have to psychologically identify as such. And that's critical. Because in today's times, a lot of African Americans are trying to run away from who they are. And the United States government is helping you self-hate by coming up with new racial identifiers every 10 years in the census. This started back in the 1970s when the United States government invented something called a Hispanic. A Hispanic was a Spanish-speaking African, probably from Puerto Rico and Cuba, whose ancestors look no different than most of the African Americans sitting in this auditorium right now. But because of light skin supremacy issues and other issues, when a lot of our Puerto Rican and Cuban brothers came to America, they identified as white even with dark brown skin. America had to do something about this because white is a privileged category that you cannot ascribe to unless you belong. So they created Hispanic to give blacks who spoke Spanish, who did not want to identify with Africa, an opportunity to opt out. They did it again in the 2000 census. And they created a category called biracial. That's interesting. Why? Because black people were enslaved for 243 years in America. Many of us the product of rape. My ancestor Frederick Douglass was the product of rape. Aaron Anthony, who raped his aunt, his mother, my Aunt Harriet, was a white male. But Frederick Douglass was never called biracial. So why is it that Africans of mixed ancestry were never called biracial? Not a single day. For 243 years, all of a sudden in the year 2000, they want to get sensitive about your racial identity and give you the option to identify as biracial. That is nothing more than a strategy of divide and conquer, separate and confuse. Black folks have a bad habit of thinking that white society puts us in boxes. It does not. Whether you are the lightest light green-eyed African with a PhD from Harvard or Yale, or the bluest, blackest purple African with 3 strikes and a felony, fresh out of jail, you are no different than the other. Right. America doesn't have the multiracial systemic structure of the Caribbean islands. A place like Jamaica or Haiti or Puerto Rico, where based on your skin tone, you might be put in a different legal category. You could be octoroon, quadroon, mulatto, colored. There's about 8 different categories based on tone. Well, they don't play that game in America. If you black at all, get on back. So Garvey and them gave us red. That represents the color. Black represents the original pigmentation of African people. But the red is first, blood first. If I brought my paternal grandmother in here, if I brought some of my great aunts in here, if I brought even my niece and nephew in here, some of you would probably swear that they were biracial. Many of them have green eyes, super light skin, including my own father, who's yellow with green eyes. I get my color from my mother's people, you see. So we come in all flavors, but we're still African. And then the green represents what? The green of the red, black, and green flag represents the motherland, Africa. Gold was not an original color of the Garvey flag. Gold came later under the influence once Jamaica got its independence, which it did not have during Garvey's life. Because of Garvey being a Jamaican and the role that the Rastafari movement played in keeping Marcus Garvey's dream alive, gold became a 4th adopted color, but the original tricolor flag had no gold. It is red, black, and green. Now some of you have seen flags the other way. Green, black, and red, red, green. Those are all incorrect. And most organizations that have a flag without the colors in the respectable, correct order are people who do not ascribe to revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute too, because it's critical to recognize the Pan-African socialist split that infiltrated within the Pan-African nationalist movement. So let me get back. Garveyism is the highest stage of Pan-Africanism. Marcus Garvey did not create Pan-Africanism. He reinvented it. Marcus Garvey would be like, say, Michael Jordan, for lack of a better comparison. Michael Jordan did not invent basketball. It was around before his parents were born. But Michael Jordan reinvented basketball. He was the greatest player, not the creator. It's the same with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was not the creator of Pan-Africanism. He was the greatest Pan-Africanist. And why? Because Marcus Garvey was the first and the only black leader in modern history, globally, to unite 15 million African people under the same red, black, and green flag. That means you can take the Hebrews, the Moors, the Nawapians, Nation of Islam, Rastafari, everybody else, put them in one group, and you still don't get Marcus Garvey's numbers. And he did this before there was a cell phone, an internet, or a television. Now, what are the principles? And I want to be clear, we don't worship Marcus Garvey. Because some people think that Garvey and Garveyism is a religious movement. No. Marcus Garvey was simply a man who did a good job. We worship Almighty God. We do not worship men. Amen. Principle number 1 of Garveyism and all of Pan-Africanism. is that all African people, whether you live in Knoxville and speak English, whether you live in London and speak the Queen's English, whether you live in Amsterdam, where I'll be in a few weeks, over in Holland, and you speak Dutch, whether you're in South Africa, where I was in November speaking at the University of South Africa, and you speak Zulu or Xhosa, whether you in Haiti and you speak Patois, or wherever you live, regardless of language, regardless of religion. You might be Muslim, Christian, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your culture. All African people anywhere in the world are one single human family. That's what Pan-Africanism means. One people. One people. We are the black man's oldest formal ideology. There is no ideology older than Africa for the Africans. Now let me give you the second principle of Pan-Africanism, and Garveyism being its highest expression. We identify as being African before we identify with anything else. I'm not a Christian who happens to be black. I'm a black man who happens to be Christian. I'm not a Muslim who happens to be black. I'm a black man who happens to be Muslim. I'm not Omega Psi Phi who happens to be black. I'm a black man who happens to be Omega Psi Phi. Nothing comes before your racial family. Not no fraternity, not no lodge, not no sorority, not no religion. Nothing comes before being African. And that's why Marcus Garvey used to say, race first. He said the European is a European first. The Arab is an Arab first. The East Indian is an East Indian first. There's issues amongst the European populations. I know that. I work with Europeans. There's conflict between Irish and Italian on a cultural level. There's some arrogance there where maybe the Anglo-Saxon think he's better than the Jew, or the Jew think he's superior to the Italian, or the Irish think he's superior. They have their little petty conflicts like we do. But when it comes to a mutual issue of white rule, they can take a time out from the petty differences and come together to work out the racial issue. The Japanese and the Chinese have petty cultural conflicts. They got issues with the Koreans and the Cambodians. There is no, what you want to say, utopian racial situation. Same thing with the Arabs. The Afghani may consider themselves superior to the Saudi. The Saudi might think themselves superior to the Kuwaiti. But when it comes to an issue that mutually affects all the Arabic people, a meeting is called. And we sit down and deal with the Arab situation. But with black people, slavery has introduced so many petty differences into your psyche that even when we are suffering, we cannot put an end to the petty differences long enough to work together. And thusly, Marcus Messiah Garvey said the greatest weapon used against the Negro is what? Disorganization. Sure, we can sing. Sure, we can dance. Sure, we can twerk. Sure, we can pray. But every race in the world knows that there's one thing black folks cannot be counted on to do well, and that is organize in their own best interests. So principle number one, we are one family. Principle number two, we identify with that family. What's the third principle of Garveyism? And my non-Africans, I need y'all to get this well. And Africans, y'all need to get it well too. The third principle of Garveyism, and these are in no particular order. Principle 10 can be one or vice versa. They're all equally important. Is when you worship, this is fundamental Pan-Africanism. When you worship, your deity better look like you and not somebody else. Yes. Yes. We don't don't have a problem with the white man's Jesus looking like the white man. He should worship God in his image. I ain't got a problem with the Latino's Christ looking like the Latino. He should worship Christ in his image. I don't have a problem with the Arab's Muhammad looking like the Arab. He should honor a prophet Muhammad in his own image. But if they should, so should you. Not only should you, you're the only people who, if you put Jesus in your image, he's actually in the image he actually was in when he walked the earth. Jesus was a black man, and we can prove it. Some people beg the question, what does the color of God have to do with it, Dr. Johnson? Well, let me put on my psychology hat. The reason the color of your Lord has everything to do with the psyche of an oppressed people is because the brain is an image creating and image associating machine. So if you take your 5-year-old black daughter or son to Sunday school and they worship God in the image of oppression, come on. By the time that black child is 10 years old, their brain will associate the white skin of God and generalize it to all white people. In other words, if God is white, maybe that explains why white folks are in charge of my life. Maybe that explains why the cops are white, the judges are white, the president is white, because all of them have the skin of the Most High God. And that makes it easier to accept oppression when you think God ordained it. So we say your Lord must look like you because no people in world history has ever come out from under oppression worshiping the image of a deity that looks like their enemy. When the last time you caught white people worshiping a black Jesus? Not being disrespectful. They won't do that. They have too much self-respect. It ain't even racism. My God should look like me. I ain't got a problem with the white Jesus in the white church. I got a problem with the white Jesus in the black church. And then we want to blame public schools in Tennessee for miseducating black kids and teaching them to hate self. It wasn't Knoxville Public School that taught your son to hate himself. You did it at Sunday school. Teach on it. And yes, we will have a Q&A at the end. I mean, let's be honest now. Let's look at the facts of the situation. Because I don't want nobody thinking that I'm automatically trying to monopolize the color of Christ. I believe in truth. Whether that truth be white or whether that truth be black. Albert Einstein was a genius. He wasn't black. He was a straight up genius. The Wright brothers invented the airplane. They weren't black, but they were straight up geniuses. Yes. Steve Jobs, a straight up genius. I can point to men and women of every race and respect their God-given talents, but when it comes to my race, we don't want to respect and acknowledge that. We rather change the color of the person who did it rather than acknowledge they came from black intelligence. In ancient Africa, you cannot be called a Christ. Christ means anointed one. You cannot wear the title. And anything you hear me say tonight, all of you, regardless of race, class, color, culture, research what you hear. Ascribe nothing to what I say to be true. Find it out for yourselves, because most of it you never heard it before. Don't dismiss it. Go and research. That Dr. Umar Johnson said that in ancient Africa you could not wear the title Christ unless your skin was, as our ancestors called it, kissed of the sun. You had to be blue, black, purple to be a savior of the Lord. That is African spirituality 101. There was never a savior sent who was not kissed of the sun. Every one in your Bible was an African, every last one of them. Muhammad was even an African. His grandfather was known to be one of the blackest of all the men of Arabia. His mother was a Sudanese Hebrew. Ain't no saviors but look like us. Ain't that something to hate black folks all day long and go worship them on Sunday? But hold tight. Who painted The Last Supper? Leonardo da Vinci. 1482. 10 years before Columbus sailed to America. Prior to Leonardo's painting of The Last Supper, there were few replicas of Christ in the image of a European. Nearly every picture of Christ had him as blue, black, purple. Not Obama, blue, black, purple. Because y'all like to cheat. I need my white folks to understand something about the black folk in here. Because we hate our color so much. When somebody say, go back to the black, we'll go cheat and get a tan Jesus. No, let's keep it real, black folks. Because a lot of y'all took down the white Jesus and you got a tan Jesus who looked like Lionel Richie or somebody. Little Richard up there. What happened to my mic? They don't like it. What happened to my mic? They don't like it. Test. Let's keep on going, y'all can hear me. Okay. Leonardo da Vinci painted The Last Supper. Guess who he used as Jesus?
Criminals.
And y'all in college, so y'all should be able to do the research on this.
Speak on it.
Leonardo had his own uncle sitting as Jesus. And guess where he got the 12 disciples from? A local jail. Oh yes, black folks. White folks, you need to know this as well. So when you pray and say, the Lord isn't answering my prayers.
Come on.
It's only the truth. And guess what the definition of the word truth means? Goodness of faith. When you stand on the truth, you ain't even got to have a religion. Come on. My religion is the truth. Come on. Come on. Are you a Muslim? I see you got a bow tie on. No, I'm not. I've never been a member of the Nation of Islam. I never will be because of ideological differences. But they are my brothers and my sisters. We are family. We are like friends. You understand? They do security for Dr. Umar at certain events. They are my brothers. We would die together for each other. You understand?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But I don't have to be a member of the Nation of Islam because you understand the Nation of Islam's history. You'll know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was once the Elijah Poole, who was a member of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association. So I don't have to get his version of Garveyism. I get it from the source.
Come on.
Because there is no black power, black nationalism without Marcus Garvey. I was in Omaha, Nebraska, University of Nebraska 2-3 nights ago. Malcolm X. His mother and father, Earl and Louise Little, Garveyites. And just so you know, when I say Garveyite, that automatically means Pan-Africanist. Garveyites are Pan-Africanists. Earl, why was Malcolm X's father killed? Malcolm X's father was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan, I believe in Lansing, Michigan, for carrying out the work of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Right.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. went to Marcus Garvey's grave not long after Malcolm X was murdered, and it was Dr. King at Marcus Garvey's grave who said that Marcus Garvey was the first black man to organize African people in a significant manner, and he met with the Garveyites in Jamaica, and within 2 years he was murdered. And many people believe that Dr. King was influenced by the Pan-Africanism of a Garvey, and when he came back from Jamaica, started sounding like Garvey, and on April 4th, 1968, he was murdered by the FBI. So I'm proud to say I'm a Garveyite. This is the organization that stood toe-to-toe with the Ku Klux Klan right here in Tennessee. When
they tried to kill off black folks, they took that red, black, and green flag, and the brothers went out there and said it's going to be an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth if you think you're taking one of these lives. That's how Garvey got down. So now, Jesus' mother Mary was from the tribe of Judah. If you know anything about the 12 tribes, Judah was known as the bluest, blackest tribe of the 12. According to biblical narrative, Jesus had to be hid amongst children in Kemet called Egypt by the Greeks. Kemet means land of the blacks. This is what the Greeks, not us, the Greeks, the white folks said Kemet was the land of the blacks. So if Jesus' mother Mary takes him to go hide in the land of the blacks, then what must he have been? For my white students, this is not to make you inferior at all. It's to establish the equality of African people with everybody else. I don't endorse a black arrogance that says we're better than you, no more than I would endorse a white arrogance that say that you're better than us. But there's been some confusion about Pan-African nationalism. People think that when we espouse black pride, we're automatically espousing an anti-white rhetoric. Let me tell you something. There's never been a black leader, not even the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who you could ever prove to have been a bigot and a hater of any... That took me back. Let's be honest. Two things you're known for, Tennessee. You are the home of the Ku Klux Klan, and you are the state where Dr. King breathed his last breath. You have a very unique place. I am due in Austin, Texas tomorrow. So let's get back to it. So we believe your Lord should look like you. Many of you are familiar, especially my education majors, of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision, where the Supreme Court ruled after Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall argued that race should have no place in public education. Right. The Supreme Court ruled that you can no longer use race in public education. To argue the NAACP Defense League's position, a prominent black psychologist by the name of Kenneth Clark did a doll study where he asked black boys and girls which doll was more pretty, more attractive, the white, the tan, or the black. And he used the Dow study to justify that segregated schools led to low self-esteem in black children. Well, would you know that 40 years before Kenneth Clark and the Supreme Court decision, Marcus Garvey had built a black doll factory, and the Garveyites of the UNIA were producing black dolls for black boys and black girls as a panacea to low self-esteem before any black psychologist did a doll study. Yes, it's important to see glory in yourself. Yes, because the images that you feed the mind will condition your beliefs. Right. Even now, I'm a principal, a school psychologist. Even now, if I take out a black doll, I've done it. I've done it. And ask the children which is the most attractive. They will take the white doll even today. Right. Because of the war against the image of the black man and the black woman. And black folk, we got some of this responsibility to bear. This gangster rap music is doing nothing but killing our image with our consent. listen to one gangster rap song, you'd have listened to them all.
Yeah.
All of them talk about the same thing. It might be a different rapper with a different flow, with a different beat, but the same four things are in every popular rap song you hear. Smoking marijuana, sexually exploiting women, going to jail, and killing other black people. That's it. I don't care if it's Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Lil Wayne, Jeezy. And this is what our kids dance to.
Right.
Yes.
And y'all let y'all kids listen to that filth.
Teach your man.
And you don't even know that the same music corporations that sell the rap music are investing in the prisons that the behavior that the rap music leads to. I'm going to make money off of advertising black incarceration, and then I'm going to get paid after they get incarcerated.
Right. Right.
And this is what we listening to. I'm going to tell you something, African folks. And I want everyone in here to hear. This is something slavery did to you.
Go ahead.
And you know what it did? It made you comfortable seeing yourself disrespected. Slavery made you comfortable having no power over your reality. Slavery made you care about other people more than your own children. When you talk to African Americans, we quick to say, I'm not black, I'm just a human being. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't put me in no color. I'm an individual. Nobody else running around talking that nonsense but you. You try to run away from who you are. As if somehow if you identify as not being black, the world will see you as something other than black. Next tenet of Garveyism is what Marcus Garvey taught? African racial pride. We believe not in just knowing our history. I could show you a million bourgeoisie, black intellectual scholars who know their history, but they not proud of it. We internalize our history. We proud to be black, proud to be African. It ain't just about knowing. It's a pride there. When Italians raised that Italian flag, when Jews raised the flag of Israel, when Afghanis raised that Afghanistan flag, they said, I'm proud of this. Not just knowing, I'm proud. And we believe that until you become proud of what you are, you'll never fight to protect it. Some of y'all proud to be Christians, but you ain't proud to be black yet. Proud to be Muslim, but you ain't proud to be black yet. So we believe in African racial pride. This next tenet is a little controversial, I know, because it's fallen out of fashion amongst black folk, but it hasn't fallen out of fashion amongst us Garveyites and Africans. And that is Marcus Garvey taught, and we believe that black men should be married to black women. Because I want my white females in the audience to understand why. Because I would hate for you to mistake the rationale as being equivalent to the rationale of the Ku Klux Klan, who don't believe in anti-miscegenation, but they don't believe in anti-miscegenation because they consider the African to be inferior. We don't believe in anti-miscegenation not because we consider the white woman to be inferior to the black woman, because we do not. All of humanity has a right to be respected. The reason we say that African people should not marry outside of their race is because the only way you can build a strong community is to build strong families. And the only way you can build strong families is for the black man to be with the black woman. There was a Supreme Court case in 1967, the year before the FBI murdered Dr. King. And I know some of you are saying, well, this is an academic setting, so you need to prove what you state. I would agree with that. I'm a research PhD. There's a book that you need to read. Y'all should read it because y'all live in Tennessee. And the name of the book is called Orders to Kill. The other book is called An Act of State. Dr. King's white family attorney, whose name is escaping me right now.
William Pepper.
William Pepper sued the United States government in court. And won in court, proving that it was not James Earl Ray, but the FBI that murdered Dr. King. But guess what? When you drive down to Memphis, to the National Civil Rights Museum, they still have a narrative that claims James Earl Ray was the murderer, although we got documented proof in court where Attorney Pepper proved that it was the FBI. And guess who they paid to kill Dr. King? It's all in the book, The Italian Mafia of Tennessee. That shouldn't surprise you. It was the mafia who was paid to flood the black ghettos with dope. I'm not talking about Italian people. I'm talking about an organization that just so happens to have members of that ethnicity involved. But I want you to show how evil racism can be. The local police department of Memphis was involved. The fire department was involved in the orchestration of Dr. King. The Ku Klux Klan provided intelligence to the mob. Wow. Dr. King's assassination was the most thoroughly planned assassination of a black leader ever, even more well orchestrated than Malcolm's murder. And our kids supposed to pledge allegiance to the government that lets police shoot down Mike Brown and don't spend a day in jail.
Come on.
Eric Garner don't spend a day in jail. I heard Geraldo Ridiculous Rivera say that while I was Trayvon wearing the hoodie, I was in Sanford when the verdict came out. They interviewed me in Miami the night of the verdict, and they said, Dr. Johnson, do you think Zimmerman's going to jail? I said, of course he's not. And they said, why do you say that? I said, because black people, not white folks, black people in the Obama era have created this post-racial context that allows black life to be taken and nobody to be punished, because we made the world believe that America is making progress because they put a token black man in the White House. And y'all about to get suckered again. That's right. And you got Hillary and Bernie. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders running around having town hall meetings for black folks. Y'all called Bill Clinton the first black president because he played the saxophone and smoked some weed. Bill Clinton is black. And Bill Clinton put more black men in jail than George Bush. And you calling him a black man. What did Bill Clinton do to swell the jails? Two things.
3 strikes.
Number one was 3 strikes and you out. That was Clinton. Yes, the Congress was Republican, but Clinton championed the law. What's the other thing he did? He upgraded non-violent, drug-related offenses to felony crimes. Bill Clinton. I didn't do it. Look at that. Bill Clinton lied under oath and didn't do a day in jail. But my brother, the former governor of Detroit, Michigan, Ronnie Kilpatrick, lied under oath. They took his law license. They didn't take bills. He doing hard time right now for doing the same thing Bill Clinton did. But because he don't benefit from white privilege. I want my white folk in here to hear me when I say this. I don't hold you responsible for slavery. I don't hold you responsible for the systematic discrimination that takes place against these black people in Tennessee every day. It is not your responsibility to solve the racial problems of America. But I do hold you responsible for one thing and one thing only. When you see racism and fail to act in the moment. White folks know you got family members who racist. You got friends who racist. You see them say things about us every day, and you walk right on by. You're not guilty of committing. You're guilty of omitting your responsibility to the So we believe that we need strong black families. But after that Supreme Court decision in Loving versus Virginia, where the Supreme Court struck down the last of the remaining anti-miscegenation laws in 1967, black men have been marrying outside of their community more than the men of every other community in America put together. Black men, don't sit here and tell me you can't help who you fall in love with when you seem to be the only people falling in love outside of your community. Am I going to hate a black man who's married to a white woman? Of course not. I meet them, I talk to them. But they also recognize that you can never be a leader of the community because our sons need to see you loving on a black woman. Right. Not for racism, but for righteousness. And then they killing the image of the black family on TV. Yes. Empire. Olivia Pope. A black woman, well educated, drop dead gorgeous. Can't stand her father. Can't find a black man that can suit her anywhere. But doesn't mind being the occasional bed wench to the President of the United States of America. And this show was the #1 show for black women in America. That's right, sister. You love scandal. Now let's do a psychological analysis. There's a little bit of you in everything you like. So don't tell me you got a problem with black men dating outside the community when you fantasize every week on Scandal wishing you was Olivia Pope. And then, after Scandal, they came out with Empire. Lucius Lyon, Cookie, Hakeem, Jamal, and Andre. Now take a look at this now. You have Lucius Lyon, narcissistic, ego-driven, power-hungry black man, can't stand his baby mom. Then you got his oldest son, Andre, Ivy League educated, married to a white woman, don't even look at sisters. Then you got Hakeem, hyper-masculine, don't respect women, they're only as good as he can use them and discard them. And then you got Andre, don't look at women, he deals with men and his partner happens to be white. How do you get 4 black men in the same mini-series, the #1 show on TV, and not one of those 4 black men has a positive relationship with a black woman? But America is post-racial. We live in a post-racial society. White folk, don't ever tell black people I don't see your color. It's the most disrespectful thing you can say. Because the color represents the culture, the history, the struggle, the ethnicity, the past, everything. To not see the color of the African is to not see the African. And don't say, I have friends who are. Let's be honest. In white racist strategy, you keep a few black folk around. Come on. Because it helps to disqualify you as an active racist. But please don't tell me that your close proximity to black folks means you cannot dislike them. Right. Because last time I checked, in slavery, we lived in a house with you. Come on. And you'll still take our life at a second's notice. In slavery, we made you food. In slavery, we breastfed your baby. So don't say because you live next door to me that means you don't hate my folk. In fact, you could be married to a black man and hate black folks.
Yeah.
And what you black folks need to understand is that racists don't have to hate you. Let me deal with this. Because black folks assume if a white person is a racist, they hate you. No, not necessarily. Some of y'all know some good white people. Y'all got some white friends. But guess what? If there's ever a situation that arises, white people are race first, they should be. Latino are race first, they should be. Let me tell you a story. I knew a woman who had a white girlfriend as a best friend. They grew up high school, middle school, families knew each other, same block, went to college. They started working together. The sister had a little bit more education than her white friend. She had a master's, the white friend had a bachelor's. A job promotion came up. Her white friend heard about it, but she wasn't qualified for it. Instead of telling her black friend who she was raised with, birthday parties and great adventures and all of that, instead of telling her, hey, there's a job promotion, you better go get it, she went and told a white person she didn't even know who got the job. When her black friend found out, she said, hey, why did you tell her about it and not tell me? And what I had to explain to the black woman was that that white woman's relationship with you is personal. Her making sure white folks get the managing job is business. And the problem with black folks is y'all don't know how to separate personal from business.
Right. Speak on that. Speak on that.
Listen, me and him can have the same kind of business. He's my brother. We grew up together. Personal relationship. But do you think I'm going to teach him anything to outdo me on the business level?
Say it.
You got to mature yourself about racial ideology. In fact, some of y'all would probably think that white folk don't like Dr. Umar. They love me. They love me. And why? I'll tell you why. Because I do not hamper after integration like I'm a madman. I'm not a segregationist. I am not a segregationist. But I'm not trying to move in a neighborhood and mix it. I'm not trying to send my daughters to their schools. I'm not trying to marry their daughters. So they can respect me because they know, okay, he has his views, but he ain't going to take nothing I got. They can respect a black man who wants to build up as a man. But when you run around begging to accept me, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In Philadelphia, we had a movement led by some of our African-centered scholars to force black history in the public schools. They wanted the teachers to teach, and this is a national thing. And I would never oppose it publicly. But I told the scholars, I don't support this. I'm not going to work against it, because you don't work against anything that's progressive. Okay? I'm not going to work against it, but I'm not going to champion it. Why not? You should know how important it is for black kids to know who they are. Of course I do. But guess what? Black history should be taught by black people. Do you see the Chinese community begging the Tennessee State Department of Ed to teach Chinese history? No, they teach it themselves. Right. You see the East Indians running around trying to get them to teach East Indian history? No, they teach it themselves. Why would you give a population that has systematically and consistently discriminated against you the right to interpret your children's memory to them? Right now. Which takes me to the next point of Garveyism. Self-determination and self-reliance and do for self. Marcus Garvey said, you can't beg for your place. Yes. You can't demand your place in America. Marcus Garvey said, you got to make your own place. Yes. We beg. Governor of Tennessee, can you improve the schools? Mayor of Knoxville, can you get us some jobs? But last time I checked, for Christmas, Knoxville, y'all spent over $3 million on useless Christmas gifts. Useless Christmas gifts. And you out there begging white folks while you spending your money on cell phones, laptops, tablets, sneakers, and fake hair. We got to be careful not to clap, and I'm not impugning none of my sisters with processed hair. Right. And the brothers, the reason we got to check ourselves is the fact that many of our women process their hair because they're trying to look like what you consider to be attractive. Some of you guys know I'm trying to make American history. I'm trying to become the first black man to buy a historically black college and turn it into America's first revolutionary Pan-African residential academy for black boys. We're trying to open up the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy. And we're trying to purchase the St. Paul's College, an HBCU that closed down 3 years ago in Southern Virginia, Lawrenceville. They want $2 million. We've raised $500,000. And if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so online at GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar. Also outside after the lecture and Q&A session, I have a merchandise table. You can pick up an envelope, donation envelope on your way out the door and mail it in. Some people say, why you ain't apply for a grant to get that done? Because as Pan-African nationalists, we believe that what is to be done for black people must be done by black people. And after we open up the Anna Douglas and after we open up the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy for the boys, we're going to open up the Anna Douglas and Amy Garvey Academy for the girls. And I want all my mothers to know that when your daughter comes to my school, she must show up nappy by nature. There won't be no wig, no perm, no straightening comb, no extensions, no relaxer, no cherry girl. Marcus Messiah Garvey said, don't take the kinks out your hair, take them out your head. And some of y'all saying, well, what does my daughter's hair have to do with her education, Dr. Johnson? Everything. Do you realize the greatest weapon used against a black girl and woman psychologically is her internal standard of beauty? Black women spend over 85% of your disposable income trying to look white. So I'm going to raise your daughter up as a baby to love that nappy hair. Let me tell you something about nappy hair. In African culture, traditional, you was not allowed to touch your hair until you went through your initiation into adulthood. Hair was considered an extension of divine intelligence. And even the Greeks and the Romans wrote that the nappy hair of the African was an electric conductor that poured down the intelligence from the universe. And that's why your hair goes snap, crackle, We don't teach racism. Do you know I help white parents as much as I help black parents? They'll never tell you. They call me up too. When their kids get jammed up, Chinese parents, oh yeah, they know who I am. They'll call me in a minute. They won't tell you, but they'll call me. Because as African people, our greatest blessing has been our greatest curse. And you know what that is? Our humanity. Yeah, right. Do you realize we're like the only people who have never created a weapon of mass destruction? Yeah. That's how Africa got dominated in the first place. Children say, Dr. Umar, if we was a great people, how did the white man take Africa? If we was a great people, how did we end up in slavery? I'll tell you why. when they showed up from Europe, you accepted them as brothers and sisters.
Right, sir.
Whatever you had, you gave it to them. They came in with the Bible and you had the resources. And by the time they left, they had the resources and you got the Bible. And guess what? I was in South Africa 2 months ago. I'll be in, where am I going next? Back to South Africa, over to Paris, and then Ghana and Senegal. And they still got missionaries all through Africa. With white Jesus pictures. Come on. And you know why we ran over to Christianity? I'm not anti-Christian. Now you're talking about a descendant of African Methodist Episcopal Church people. My uncle's a pastor. I get my oratory from my pastor. I'm not against the church, but I'm against people using the church.
Go ahead.
You understand? To satisfy their own personal, selfish, political, economic agenda.
Go ahead.
And speaking of the black church, Knoxville.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The black church has been the greatest accomplice to black oppression in this century. Listen, I'm not talking religion, I'm talking about how they use it.
That's right.
You go to church every Sunday and you put money in there. And you put money in there. And they say this is the Lord's money, this is the Lord's money, this is the Lord's money. But you never see the Lord pick it up. And guess what they do with your black church dollars?
Go ahead.
And this ain't every church. We got exceptions. I know because I speak in churches all the time. I'll be speaking in a church in Minnesota Saturday. So it ain't everybody. But they take your Jesus money, your hard-earned black dollar, and they take it to downtown Knoxville and put it in a white bank. And in a white bank who won't even give you a loan. Will take your Jesus money and compound the interest on your black Jesus money and give a loan to a white developer to come into the ghetto of Knoxville and buy up all the abandoned homes and all the burned down buildings and turn the ghetto into a thriving suburb and put grandma out on the street because she can't afford the taxes. Wake up! Wake up! And then you find out that the same money that grandma was giving the church put grandma on the street. Talking about, I'm going to help you prepare for heaven. But you ain't got a problem with me living in hell. I don't want to wait to die to get heaven. As Pan-Africanists, we say if the white man got his heaven now, I want mine now. And if the Chinese got his heaven now, I want mine now. If the European Jew got his heaven now, I want mine now. And guess what? I ain't voting or marching for it. I'm taking it. See, I was supposed to be a bourgeois Negro. They thought because my father was in the Marine Corps, I would go along. So they put me in special programs all through school. I went to a military high school. They say, yeah, he's a good one, Johnson. They didn't realize my ancestors had other plans for me. See, let me tell you something, Knoxville, and I want the white folk to hear me. Racism keeps black people in their place by building up a black bourgeoisie leadership cartel that they put in Knoxville. Yes! Bourgeois black folk are responsible for why we don't move. Bourgeois! So I'm probably here now shaking. Listen, if you're taking notes, take this. Right there. There's 5 families in the black bourgeoisie. No, take notes. Talk about this in class. There's 5 families in the black bourgeoisie. There's the higher education bourgeoisie. There's the media bourgeoisie. There's the big money bourgeoisie. There's the status bourgeoisie and then the religious bourgeoisie. Those are the 5 black cliques in Knoxville that keep the poor black folk deaf, dumb, and blind. Right, let's break them down. Higher ed bourgeois are professors at your Tennessee universities, superintendents at your school districts, principals in your school districts. Whenever somebody asks them why black boys ain't learning, instead of telling the truth that the public schools are designed for them to fail, instead of telling the truth, 93% of the teachers in Knoxville are white women, most of whom don't care about them boys. Instead of telling the truth, you know what they say? His pants are sagging. Really? He listens to Lil Wayne. His daddy's in jail. His mom not married. He's impoverished. The teachers don't make enough money. The textbooks are old. Are all those factors relevant? Yes. But they symptoms, not causes. Right. You could fix the schools in Knoxville overnight. So Dr. Johnson, if you was the superintendent of Knoxville tomorrow, what would you do to revolutionize education? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the high school and I'm going to put all the industrial building trades that the racists took out in the 70s back in the Go to college. Go to college.
Speak on that.
That's right. Damn, y'all in head when we paying off loans for the rest of your life.
Speak on that. Speak on that. Speak on that.
Do you know there's over 2 million African Americans with master's and doctorate degrees in this country who cannot find a job? You can't wait to send your son and daughter to the University of Arkansas so they can get a PhD in grasshopper reproduction on the moon? Wait. Listen. The white folks are feeling me, but they don't want to act like it. I ain't got no problem with y'all. Listen, your daughter graduated with a PhD in grasshopper reproduction on Mars. She come back to Knoxville. Where's she gonna get a job at? My University of Tennessee students, listen to me, Tennessee students, black and white. Please choose your major carefully. Listen, the average university has about 150 degree programs. Only 20 of them mean something. Whoa! Take your time. Talking about you getting a general liberal arts degree. What the hell you gonna do with that? Half the black folks in America with a college degree work in an expertise separate from their major. The degree ain't even mean nothing.
That's right.
Talking about you want to go study medieval Shakespearean poetry. You could do that at the public library with a card. You better get it. So the first thing I would do is put the building trades back. I'm going to put carpentry back. I'm going to put plumbing back. I'm going to put barbering back. HVAC back. Automobile back. Woodworker back. I got a friend right now. He's a carpenter. 2 years at a trade school. Make more money than I do. Almost a millionaire. And he helped people remodel their homes. I got another brother. He's an HVAC specialist. He goes into school districts and redoes their whole heating and cooling system. Almost a millionaire. And your child is at the University of Arkansas studying Macbeth. Why do you think the prisons are filling up with black males? Because beginning in 1970, what happened was this. At the end of the Black Power movement, the government was exhausted. They in Vietnam trying to steal stuff over there. And they got to worry about Dr. King, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Stokely Carmichael, H.Rap Brown, NAACP, Urban League, SNCC, CORE, the Garveyites, the Pan... They were tired. And the government said, we can never let this many black groups rise at once ever again. So they picked up the phone and called the mob and said, get that crack ready because we're going to dump it. And then they called up the white racist labor unions in Tennessee and said, we're going to take all the building trades out the high schools. Why? Because it was black tradesmen who financed the black power movement. And they said, we got to destabilize this. So they took all that, dropped the crack in, because black men couldn't have no jobs after they took the programs out the high school. So we was forced to sell drugs. And I want my white folk to understand something. Who were the drug dealers in 1920? Who was gangbanging in America's streets in 1920? Who was selling the dope and the booze in the liquor? Italian, Irish, Jewish gangsters. No, this is no slight on them. They did it because up until 1940, Southern European immigrants were not considered white people yet. No, do your research. Don't believe nothing I say. Get it out. They were not considered white. In fact, they used to call them Guinea, which is the name of an African country. You know why they called the Italians Guinea? Because when you study the history of Italy, I'm just being honest. You're going to find that Italy was civilized by a group of Africans known as Moors. And that's where the olive complexion of the Italian and the black hair comes from. Yes. Same thing with the Irish. Black Irish, do your research. European Jew, you a Semite. Semite means half white and half what? So they didn't consider you white till the 40s. And then in the 40s, the government said, okay, we're going to help these white folks out because we need them on our side before they line up with the black folks. We don't need that. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give the Italians the fire department, and we're going to give the Irish the police department. They like beating up blacks anyway. And we're going to give the Jews the European civil service jobs downtown. That's what they did. And so white folk was given an opportunity to get their piece of the American dream. And guess what black folks did? We simply went into the positions that the white folks used to occupy. But they want you to believe that we're born to kill. Black men have a gene that makes them violent. We ain't got no gene that makes us violent. You miseducate us and then you economically castrate us. What can make a man madder than not being able to take care of his children? That's why black men are killing each other. Guess who got the highest incidences of violence in the world? Black men in America, black men in South Africa, black men in England. What do black men in America, black men in South Africa, and black men in England got in common? White systemic economic racism. Half the black men in England unemployed, half the black men in South Africa unemployed, half the black men in Knoxville unemployed. They know why we kill, but they don't want to give us no jobs because when you try to get rid of a people, the last thing you do is give them money. Post-racial. What else do we believe is Pan-Africanism? We believe this, and I need black folk to hear me well. We believe that the only way you solve the problems of any African population in the world is to solve the problems of all the African people in the world. In other words, the reason black folks in America are not doing better is because we're trying to fight an isolated fight without support from the Caribbean, without support from Europe, without support from Africa. That's been our weakness. How you going to win against white supremacy? You don't produce nothing. You don't even make a damn tic-tac. You talking about you don't fight racism. Had a brother come up to me the other day, brother, we need to get some armies and just fight. What guns you make? Don't even make a plastic straw. Talking about you don't go to war. What's the first thing they're going to do? You go to war, they're going to cut off all your supplies because you don't produce nothing. You'll be dead in a week. We got to be smart. You can't win no physical war, but you can win an economic war. You're not serious, Knoxville. You know how you know you're serious? When you go to the bank and take every black dollar out of it. When you're serious, they'll never see you again inside Walmart. Watch it crumble.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Speak on it.
Let them not catch you at another Toyota dealership. Do you know black folk are disproportionately responsible for keeping Toyota up and running? Sister, stop buying them Louis Vuitton bags. Yes. Brothers with your Air Jordan sneakers. There's nothing worse. You know what's the worst sight in the black community? The worst sight for me in the black community, I don't care what hood I'm in, you know I speak in all of them across the world, is to see a black boy or girl, 5 or 6 years old, $100 pair of sneakers, $100 jacket, $100 clothes. He's only 5 or 6 and his parents are already conditioning him to worship the white man's dollar.
Yes.
But he ain't got $1 in the bank for his future. He ain't got $1 of life insurance. Not $1 in the bank to pay for college. What's wrong with us? I know what's wrong with us. Slavery put you in an arrested development. That means black folk act like children sometimes who just want to have fun with their disposable cash instead of taking care of business. Every time I go somewhere, somebody passing me a flyer for another party. Go ahead. Go ahead. They be having a party. We party. Overgrown children. Come on, we got a Super Bowl party. Right. That's all we want to do is have fun instead of taking care of business. Right. We believe that black folks have to link up with Africans and Asians and Central and South Americans. I'll be in the Caribbean next week. I'll be speaking at the University of Philipsburg in St. Martin. The Dutch side and the other side is French. Okay? We got to unify internationally. That's the solution.
Yes, sir.
A house divided cannot stand. Pan-Africanism is based on the principle that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Garvey said that Africa must be the governmental headquarters of black folks. Yes, sir. Garvey is unique in this regard. This is where the Pan-African split came in. W.e.b. Du Bois. Some of y'all know him. Yeah. He's worshipped in Tennessee because he taught down at Fisk. He was editor of the NAACP's major paper, The Crisis. They say he was a co-founder of the NAACP. They just used him. But anyway, I respect W.e.b. Du Bois. If you go with me to Ghana this summer, we visit his grave because you know he's buried in Ghana. And why is W.e.b. Du Bois buried in Ghana? Because they have to help him to destroy Marcus Garvey. Yep. That's right. Yep. W.e.b. Du Bois was Marcus Garvey's Lex Luthor. If you want to study jealousy amongst black male egos, study the Garvey versus W.e.b. Du Bois situation. Why did Du Bois hate Garvey? They was both Pan-Africanists. You know why? Because W.e.b. Du Bois felt because he was biracial, quadracial, mulatto, and all this stuff. He had a doctorate from Harvard. He was hand-stamped by the white folks of the NAACP. He felt that after Booker T. Washington died, he should automatically be given the mantle of leader of the blacks. And right after Booker T. Washington died and W.e.b. Du Bois prepared to take over the leadership, a black man got off a banana boat from Jamaica and said, "Up, you mighty race! You can accomplish what you will." And Du Bois blamed Garvey for stealing his opportunity of ever becoming a race leader. And he set out to destroy Marcus Garvey, which he did. The United States government sent W.e.b. Du Bois to Liberia, and when Marcus Garvey was about to be given land to build a colony, an African colony for blacks who wanted to go back home, Du Bois sabotaged it. He did all he could to destroy Garvey, and then when Marcus Garvey died in 1940, he writes a letter to his widow, Amy Jakes Garvey, and said, "I'm sorry for the role I played in destroying the most significant black movement we ever had. I don't want no damn sorry. You should have left the man alone, because what he was doing, you wasn't doing it." And guess what? He got the lesson of his life, because after Garvey was deported and Garvey died, W.e.b. Du Bois joined the communist movement and found out that the white communist was just as racist as the white capitalist. Racism is racism. whether it's in Russia or America. And then he got so mad that he quit the Communist Party, went back to the NAACP. They made him mad. He quit them, and at 90 years old, look at this now. Here's a black man with a doctorate from Harvard, a scholar, one of the most published black men in American history. And it took him to 90 years old to understand white supremacy. And guess what he did? He gave up his American citizenship, moved to Ghana, West Africa, on the request of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of independent Ghana. He began his Encyclopedia Africana project and died there, never to return. In other words, the moral of the story is, it don't matter how many degrees you got from America's white universities, until you understand white racism, you understand nothing. But Garvey said Africa should be the homeland. This is where Pan-African nationalism became black nationalism. Some of y'all don't know this. Black nationalism was a takeaway from Pan-Africanism. Because some of you pro-black folk didn't love who you are and where you come from, so you cut off Africa from your political ideology and said, we just want a black power in America, a black nationalism. We don't want nothing to do with Africa. And that's why diehard Pan-Africanists like me will call black nationalism an oxymoron. You hate racism, but you don't want to leave it. No, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ask the United States government to give us 3 states in the South so we can build a black republic. You know what they're going to do? They're going to give you Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then they're going to put a stop and go with weed in every corner. First of all, anybody who's ever studied military science know the last thing that an oppressed people want to do is to be landlocked in the middle of oppressed folks all around you with no access to the water. Talking about you in a black republic in America. Do you realize the Civil War was fought? The white man killed his own brother?
Yeah.
And y'all should know, Tennessee, that's why y'all are volunteers.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Y'all volunteered to keep slavery in place. That's right. The white man killed his own brother so America wouldn't become 2 countries. The Civil War was the bloodiest war until Vietnam. The white man killed his own brother for America to stay 1 country. And you think he gonna give you? The white man killed his own brother?
Yeah.
And y'all should know, Tennessee, that's why y'all are volunteers.
Yeah.
Y'all volunteered to keep slavery in place. That's right. The white man killed his own brother so America wouldn't become 2 countries. The Civil War was the bloodiest war until Vietnam. The white man killed his own brother for America to stay 1 country. And you think he gonna give you 3 states because you asked for it? Don't be a fool. Some people call Garveyism Africa for the Africans movement. Excuse me. Back to Africa movement. Guess what? Garvey never used those words. There's no such thing as a Back to Africa movement. Guess who called Marcus Garvey the Back to Africa movement? The white media. Marcus Garvey never said all black people should go back to Africa. Let me say it again, black and white folks, so y'all can hear me. Marcus Garvey never said all black people should go back to Africa. What did he say? He said only those few who could offer something to the repair and upliftment of Africa should go back. Could you imagine what would happen in Knoxville if I bought a big Moses ship to the Tennessee River? And I told every black person in Tennessee to get in that damn boat. Y'all going in there with basketballs, video games, chicken wings, perm juice, scandal DVDs. What is the point I'm making? Africa got enough problems of her own. So you're going to take all the problems of black Knoxville and bring them to Nigeria and drop them the hell off? I don't want all y'all going back home. If you ain't no good at Knoxville, you damn sure ain't no good at Africa. I'm going to bring this to a close by announcing, number one, every Tuesday morning I host a free Black Parent Teleconference. Any question you have about your child education or mental health, if you have a question, please call in. Parents, please stop getting your children evaluated for special education unless you are certain that something's wrong. The learning disability is a fraud and a con game. The learning disability as a diagnosis cannot be scientifically substantiated. What am I saying? I'm saying that whenever I evaluate a child for special ed, for learning disability, emotional disturbance, mild mental retardation, or ADHD, I cannot definitively prove the diagnosis. I can only give my professional opinion. The learning disability is a professional opinion. And most of the time, a learning disability is nothing more than a sloppy and lazy black child disability. Did y'all hear what I said? Your son can learn how to read. He don't feel like it. Your daughter can learn how to count. She don't feel like it. And you do know that all black children are allergic to math. You do know that. You take out a math book, they get measles, chicken pox, the flu, H1N1. And why are our children allergic to math? And guess what? Even white kids are allergic to math. I evaluate them too. Why are American children allergic to math? And the answer lies in the same reason why American children are ranked 23rd out of 25 of the top most industrialized nations' education index. Why is America at the bottom? And I want my education majors to hear me well. It's because we don't teach kids how to think. We teach them what to think. Do you realize you can make straight A's and B's from kindergarten through 12th grade and even in college? All you have to do is be expert in memorization and regurgitation. That's all you got to do to graduate magna cum laude at Tennessee. You ain't fooling me. Memorization and regurgitation. In other words, America's public school system is designed to produce robots. Right. Not free thinkers. Right. And until they change that, the Chinese and Japanese will always surpass because they teach their children how to think, not what to think. And that's why we're going to build the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. Yes, to teach kids how to think. See, math is the one class that you can't get by with memorization. You have to be able to understand the concept and apply it. But your kids never had to use their brain a day in their life until they get the math class. And the brain is so lazy, they don't even want to use it. So you just put them in special ed with a learning disability, and all you did was sign them up for the special ed to prison pipeline. The average reading level of a black male in America's prisons is the 3rd grade. The average grade at which a black boy is tested for special ed is the 3rd grade. And for my white education majors, you got my permission that when a black parent say, I think my child got a reading disability, you say, he lazy. Right. Dr. Johnson said it. Make his ass work. Excuse my Listen, Knoxville, if I went into your homes, how many of y'all got a dictionary? How many of y'all got a thesaurus? How many of y'all got a set of encyclopedia? Or are you one of the parents that whenever the child has a question, instead of making them pick up the encyclopedia and look it up, we let them get online and Google the answer. They got to do a book report for Harriet Tubman. We don't make them study Harriet Tubman at the public library. They just Google Harriet Tubman, find somebody else's book report, put their name on it. My baby, they honor us. She might as well go make some casserole. We ain't doing nothing but making slaves. Right? Black man, stop letting your son think he's going to be the next LeBron James. Go ahead. And I know this is Tennessee, and I have profound respect for the career of Peyton Manning. He does deserve another Super Bowl, but I'm riding with Cam. Peyton deserves another. He had it hard, but he can't get it this year. 3 more announcements and I'm in. Second announcement, I'm going to Africa this summer again. Y'all know I do a group tour every year. Last year we did Egypt and Ghana. This year we're going to do Senegal and Ghana. You're going to go to the Elmina Cave Dungeon, slave dungeon. You're going to go to the Cape Coast Castle, slave dungeon, where millions of Africans passed through. Even Christopher Columbus spent a week sleeping there. True story. You're going to go to Asin Mansour, which is a river where our ancestors were forced to wash their body before they marched them up to the big ship. You're going to go to the Nana Prempeh Museum. King Prempeh of Ghana was the king who refused to give over to the British the Ashanti golden stool, so they sent them in captivity. You're going to visit the jail cell where Queen Mother Ya Asante Wa, who fought against the British, was captured and imprisoned. You're going to wear white. And you're going to go through a traditional African naming ceremony, every last one of you. You're going to get an indigenous African name because Shaquita and Raheem, I'm tired of it. And the next time I meet a little girl named Mercedes, or Porsche, or Lexus, I'm going to name her Cadillac. And you're going to be able to get you some African clothes made. Those of you who study African spirituality like me, you'll be able to get a traditional African spiritual reading to see what your ancestors think about you. You know, in African culture, our angels are our ancestors. Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. You're going to go to Gorée Island, Senegal. Another major slave port. You're going to go to Pink Lake where all the water is pink. You're going to witness traditional African drumming and dancing. You're going to learn some culture, eat some of that good African food. Oh, yeah. Who knows, sisters, you might find a husband over there. Oh, yeah. Hey! Trip number 2. We got the Unapologetically African Cruise coming up this summer. Haiti, Jamaica, and Mexico. Jamaica, we're going to take you to the gravesite of His Excellency, Provisional President of Africa, the Right Honorable Marcus Messiah. You'll visit his childhood home. You're going to visit the Bob Marley Museum in his childhood home. We're going to go up into the mountains and visit the gravesite of Queen Mother Nanny of the Maroons, who fought the British off and never had to acquiesce her land. They had to sign a peace treaty with a black woman. We're going to take you to get some of that great Jamaican seafood. We're going to let you go party at the club at night. Shabba! We're going to take you to the Jamaican National Museum. We're going to go on over to Haiti and visit the Revolutionary Trail. The Haitian Revolution was considered the birthing point for Pan-Africanism, if you're taking notes. The Haitian Revolution, because the Haitian Revolution that was led by Boukman Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Henry Christophe, and Toussaint L'Ouverture was Pan-African in scope. They wanted to free Haiti, and then from Haiti, they was going to spread across the world, liberating all black folk. And that's why Martin Delany, one of the grandfathers of Pan-Africanism, named his son Toussaint L'Ouverture Delany. That's why Reverend Nat Turner, that black preacher from Virginia, who on August the 21st, 1831, said God gave him a revelation to free his people from bondage in a little town called Jerusalem, Virginia. Went from house to house, killing everything. Why? He saw mice, roaches, everything. There's a movie that just came out. What's the brother's name? Nate Parker? The brother who played with Denzel in The Great Debaters. He self-produced his own Nat Turner movie. He plays as Nat Turner. I haven't seen it yet. It was at the Sundance Film Festival. Everybody's saying it's off the hook. So that's going to be in the movie soon. So we all going to go and see that when that Nat Turner thing pops out. Nat Turner was a bad man. After they captured Nat Turner, they put him in the jail. And the white man came in there and interviewed. He said, "You said God put you on a mission." He said, "Yeah." The reporter said, "Well, if God told you to do this, and you are now captured, doesn't that mean your Lord has failed you?" Nat Turner looked up at the reporter and said, "Not at all, sir, because even Jesus Christ had to be crucified." And then they said when they took Nat Turner's body across the street, they put the noose around his neck, and when they yanked Nat Turner up, you know your body normally shakes for want of oxygen. Nat's never shook. So after his lifeless body was cut down from the hangsman's noose, they took out their knives, and as good old-fashioned Americans, they cut pieces of Nat Turner's body and took it home with them. Guess what they did with Nat Turner's head? They sent it to Harvard. They asked it to be studied to find out what it was about this one black man that did not allow him to be scared of white people. Nat Turner's head right now is owned by a black attorney. They're trying to get his head back to Virginia, yes, so he can be buried for the first time in 150 years. Wow. The struggle continues.
Right, that's right.
Brothers and sisters, I'm looking forward to the Africa trip. I'm looking forward to the cruise. But you know what I'm really looking forward to? The Dr. Umar Johnson Black Boy College and Manhood Tour. I'm doing 2 of them this summer, 11 to 17-year-old black boys. One tour will be from Harlem, New York. The other tour will be from Atlanta, Georgia. I know this is Knoxville, but guess what? Your son can come too. All you have to do is put him on Amtrak, put him on the megabus, put him on the airplane. You're going to let me know when he's arriving. I'm going to be there to get him, or one of my chaperones will be. He will participate in the 8-night, 9-day tour. We will put him back on the train, back on the bus, or back on the plane to get back to Knoxville. It's that simple, parents. So no excuses. From Harlem, we're going to go to the world-famous Apollo Theater. From Harlem, we're going to go to the Malcolm and Betty Shabazz Center, which is formerly the Audubon Ballroom, where Malcolm was assassinated on February the 21st, 1965. It's now a museum. And then we're going to go to the gravesite right outside of New York, where Malcolm X, Paul Robeson, Khalid Abdul-Muhammad, Malcolm X Jr., and Dr. Yusuf bin Yakinen, all buried in the same cemetery. Then we're going to go to Rochester, New York, and visit the grave of my ancestor, the great Frederick Douglass. And then we're going to go to Auburn, New York, and your son going to visit the gravesite of my #1 Shira, Queen Mother Harriet Tubman. And they're going to visit the Harriet Tubman house where she lived, in the Harriet Tubman Museum. That black woman who said that I could have freed millions of slaves. She said the problem was they didn't even know they were slaves. Then we're going to visit the 2 oldest black colleges in America, Lincoln and Cheney in Pennsylvania. And then we're going to go on down to Baltimore to the Great Blacks and Wax Museum, the Frederick Douglass Museum, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. Then we're going to go down to D.C. to the Fred Douglass House, Coppin State, Bowie State, Morgan State Universities. And we're going to finish it all off at the Nat Turner Trail in Jerusalem, Virginia. Your son will relive the trail that Nat and Harvest, and those brave black women soldiers, took on that August the 21st date, the date I was born. And they're going to get a chance to pick up that Nat Turner energy. In the daytime, they learn. In the evening after dinner in the hotel, they're doing seminars with me. Why you need to do well in school. Why you need to respect women. Starting your own business. Understanding African history and culture. What to do if you get stopped by the police. Navigating racism without being emotional because it can cost you your life. We're going to take them to the movies. We're going to take them to great adventures. We're going to take them to play paintball in the park. They're going to go to the beach as well. No Speedos. It ain't that type of... Murdoch! Oh my God, King Murdoch. That's the brother who first brought me to Tennessee years ago. Give Murdoch a hand, y'all. He brought me to Tennessee. They all looking in the wrong place. But anyway. So check it out. That's the North Tour. The South Tour, we leave from Atlanta. Dr. King Grave, Dr. King Museum, Dr. King House. Memphis, Tennessee, National Civil Rights Museum. Memphis, Tennessee, well, I just said that. ADHD hit me. Then we're going to go to Fisk University, Lamone Owen College, Tennessee State University. We're going to take them to the Selma Civil Rights Institute, the Montgomery African Holocaust Museum, Tuskegee Institute, the George Washington Carver Museum in Tuskegee. We're also going to take them to South Carolina, Charleston Civil War Boat Trail. 4 of my ancestors fought in the Civil War. The 2 sons of Frederick, cousins Lewis and Charles, and my 2 grandfathers, Stephen and George, the brother and nephew of Fred Douglass. They're going to go through that boat trail and relive what happened when the Massachusetts 54th Colored Regiment stormed the island. And then we're going to take them to the Oyotunji African village in Sheldon, South Carolina, so they can get some voodoo, juju, and hoodoo power. Oh, yeah. Look at y'all getting scared. Oh my God, he said voodoo. Let me tell y'all what voodoo is. Thank you. No, listen. Come on, voodoo, listen. When the ancestors were stolen from Ghana and Nigeria and Senegal, they took their spirit power with them. And in Haiti, they were not allowed to use African religion. And we don't like to call it religion. We call it culture. So they had to hide it under the Roman Catholic religion. So for every saint was named after a different African deity. Voodoo is nothing but Ifa. Yes. You understand? They took the voodoo, they took the Dogon spirituality and infused it. So what you call voodoo ain't nothing but African religion. Do some people use it for bad? Sure. I know a lot of people who use Christianity for bad. Talking about African people believing all them gods. They got 1 million gods. That's wrong. Let me explain something to y'all. In African cosmology, there's one supreme ruler of the universe. And guess what? Who's not male or female, but is the creator of the feminine and masculine power. So in African spirituality, sometimes we will call on God the Father, and other times we will call on God the Mother. God ain't always a male. And some of y'all women in here, white women included, you've never called on God the Mother a day in your life. And it's the female energy of the divine that women need to call on during childbirth, menopause, feminine issues. Why am I calling on God the Father when my wife having a child? Don't no men give birth. If it's feminine, I call on God the Mother. If I got to go to war, I'm calling on God the Father. Right. And from this supreme ruler, as Africans, we understand. You can never understand or capture the great complexity of the great divine mystery. We don't never understand God. Just because you give God a name don't mean you can comprehend that which is beyond comprehension. So what you call different gods are not different gods. They are different aspects, manifestations, and degrees of the one God. So when you see somebody call on Amen Ra is God. If they call on Goddess Ma'at, if they call on God Tahuti, Goddess Oya, I'm a son of the God Ogun, the God of war and metal, as you can see. But anyway, that's not a different God. That is the face of the one God. In other words, you have Dr. Umar Johnson, the Garveyite, Dr. Umar Johnson, the therapist, Dr. Umar Johnson, the father, Dr. Umar Johnson, the psychologist, Dr. Umar Johnson, the author. These are my many different personalities, but it's the same Umar the whole time. Africans created the belief in one God. Right. And some of y'all black folks are spooked out about your own spirituality. Come on. But you fail to recognize an aspect of the divine. And you confuse it. Because when a white man came to Africa and he saw all these manifestations, he didn't understand it. So he mistook every aspect of God as being a different deity. He was just confused. And what do we teach in African spirituality as I wrap this? We teach 3 things. Number 1, are you in line with your destiny? Are you living your life the way that God and the ancestors prescribed it? And the only way you can find that out is to get a spiritual reading. Going to church is great. Going to the mosque is great. But until you sat down with a priest and they gave you your path, you don't know what you're doing with your life. Are you living your destiny? Number 2, are your ancestors pleased with what you're doing? A lot of you who think you got bad luck, it's not bad luck. Your ancestors are spanking that booty because you ain't living the way that they prescribed you to be living. That's right. Our ancestors in African culture, we say they sit at the feet of the Most High God. And when you do good or bad, it's the ancestors who bless you first. Come on. But how many times have you called on your deceased grandma? How many times have you called on your deceased great-grandfather? You run around calling on A.L.L and Gabriel and these little naked angels and stuff. And what's the third thing we say in African spirituality? When you live in your destiny, are your ancestors pleased with you? And the third, do you have good character? Because guess what? No matter how much your ancestors want to hate you, if you ain't living with a moral life, a proper way, your blessings will never come to you.
Come on.
If you ever want to read some good books on Garveyism, you can text me and I'll send you a book list. I'm about to give you my phone number. White folk, you can take it too. And I only date sisters, I know. Phone number is area code 215-989-9858. I repeat, 215-989. You got a learning disability? 215-989-9858. I'm going to say it twice more. 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. That is my personal cell phone, okay? I never answer it, but you can text me.
I understand.
That's to my phone. I don't answer numbers I don't recognize, but I will respond to you. All you got to do is text me. Dr. Umar, I was at the University of Tennessee event. I had a quick question. Can you tell me that Tuesday morning phone call? Because I got a question about my son. I want to be on your parent conference Tuesdays from 6 to 8. Or I want to register for your Africa trip. How much is it? $4,500. When will the registration be ready? Hopefully in about 2 weeks. If it's a quick question, text me. If you got a long book, like you got a personal problem, you need some advice, please use email. Somebody text me a whole novel on the damn thing. Taking up every gigabyte I got. My email address is Dr. Johnson. My name, without a period, without a space. Dr. Umar Johnson, Dr. Johnson, at yahoo.com. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, you can follow me at Dr. Umar Johnson. Same one word. Website, drumarjohnson.com. The website is being revamped. I know it's a little outdated. We on it. Okay? I'm hoping that some of you send your sons on a Black Boy College tour. The reason I'm doing the tour is I cannot wait till I have my school to start saving young black males. You guys are taking too long to push me past the $2 million cost for the St. Paul's College. I'm mad at you because I saw for Christmas you helped Walmart meet their limit and you helped Kitty City and Toys R Us. I'm a little disappointed with black folks. And I want to say something to y'all. Listen to me. This is a Pan-African statement I'm about to give you. If I take my $500,000 that some of y'all helped me give, so I want to thank Tennessee because a lot of donations did come from your state. I want to say this. If I don't make that money, that $2 million, if I take that $5 million to Ghana and I multiply it, because the American dollar is 4 times the Ghanaian dollar, I got my $2 million. If I take that $500,000 to Senegal and times it by 7, if I take that $500,000 to Ethiopia and times it by 14, do y'all catch my grip? Yes. I have enough money to build my school in Africa today. Yes. So your question is, Dr. Umar, if you have the money to build your school in Africa, why not just do that? Because I know many of you are not Pan-Africans. You don't see Africans as your extended family. And if I go to Africa and build my school there, a lot of you will not feel comfortable enough sending your son to me. And even if my school is filled with young African brothers, I'm a Pan-Africanist. It don't make a difference to me. But there's too many black boys catching hell in America for none of them to benefit from my school. So I'm saying that. That I'm hoping we meet the deadline and the timeline to get this $2 million for St. Paul's. The school would be ideal, y'all. They got a brand new student center. They got a football field. They got a gymnasium. They got all the lecture room. I was there. Me and the president, we on the cell phone every day. He's asking me, how much money you got? He's trying to work with me, y'all. But we got to get the $2 million. $2 million for an entire college is a steal. Yes. But y'all playing games. Yeah. So I need y'all to donate. Like I said, the envelopes are outside. You could go online to gofundme.com/Dr. Umar. My white folks, some of y'all got some rich millionaires in your family. As a Garveyite, we don't take money from other races. But if you don't tell, I won't tell. I'm just kidding. You got to do it yourself. Listen up. I'm going to give y'all my closing quote before we take a few questions. We'll probably only do about 5 to 7 for the sake of time. After we're done, I want you to go outside into the hallway. I have copies of my book there, Psychoacademic Holocaust, The Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. White students, you need to read it as well. If you're an education major, if you work with children, if you are a law major, if you are a social work major, criminology, medicine, almost any field, you need to read my book. It's the only book ever written by a black school psychologist that teaches you how to fight back against special ed and ADHD legally. I have a whole chapter on frequently asked questions. I have a whole chapter on ADHD, which is nothing more than ain't no daddy at home disorder.
All right.
I have a whole chapter on how to change behavior without medicine. Get the book, read the book, buy one for people you know in the community who need that book. Also got some DVDs out there, t-shirts, whatever you need, and you can't use a credit card. The money that I make, a portion of it helps pay for the Black Boy College Tour, some of the other stuff that I'm working on, because since I don't take money from outside the community, I have to fund my events myself. All right? My closing quote comes from my ancestor, Frederick Douglass, who said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who expect to achieve freedom, but scared to go through the struggle of freedom, will never get it. He said that you want water, but you don't want to deal with the ocean. You want rain, but you don't want to deal with the thunder. You want crops, but you don't want to deal with the ground and the resistance that you're going to get. Frederick said, he who would be free must himself strike the first blow. And those blows must be paid for with blood or boldness, but you must pay. He said, men may not get everything they pay for in this world, but you must pay for everything that you get. He said, for 20 years I prayed on my knees to God for freedom. But the good Lord gave Frederick Douglass no freedom until I got up off my knees and started praying with my feet. He said, if you want respect from whites, why do you look for pity? The man who pities you will never respect you. The man who respects you has no need for pity. He said, but most of all, you remember that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. The first of my family brought to America in 1701 was a black man named Belly, most likely from Nigeria. He was brought to Talbot County, Eastern Shore, Maryland. He married Grandmom Selah. In 1745, they had Grandmom Jenny. In 1774, Grandmom Jenny gave birth to Grandma Betsy. This is 2 years before Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. Grandma Betsy married a free black man, Grandpa Isaac. They had 12 children. One daughter was named Harriet. Another daughter was named Young Betsy. Harriet and Betsy, these two sisters, were raped by the slave master who owned our family, an Irishman by the name of Aaron Anthony. As a result of that rape in 1818, Aunt Harriet gave birth to the greatest black leader in American history. His name was Frederick Bailey, my family name. But at the age of 20, Fred Bailey escaped from slavery and changed his name to hide his identity, and thusly Fred Bailey became Fred Douglass. The next year, the same slave master raped Harriet's little sister, my 6 times great-grandmother. Her name was Young Betsy. As a result, she gave birth to Frederick's little brother, Stephen Henry Bailey, my 4 times great-grandfather. Stephen wasn't so lucky as his brother ran away. Grandpa Stephen remained a slave in Maryland. He married Grandma Caroline, who was a slave on the same plantation. Their firstborn son was George Washington Bailey, my 3 times great-grandfather, who would go on to become the first black public school teacher in Talbot County, Maryland, the nephew of Fred Douglass. Well, when the Civil War starts, Frederick Douglass doesn't fight. He sends 2 of his sons, Lewis and Charles. They go north to Boston. They fight in the infamous Massachusetts 54th Colored Regiment. If you've ever seen the movie Glory, Glory is about the sons of Frederick Douglass. Morgan Freeman plays as the oldest son, the first real sergeant major in the Army. But you can't get your history from movies. Glory would make you think that every black man who fought was an escaped slave. Totally wrong. Every black man in the 54th Massachusetts Colored Regiment was a free black man who voluntarily enlisted to fight for the freedom of his family. My grandfather Stephen and his son, my grandfather George, fought side by side, father and son, the United States Colored Troops of Maryland. When the Civil War was over, Grandpa George married Grandmom Annie. Grandmom Annie was the niece of Bishop Alexander Wayne, the 7th bishop under Richard Allen in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. They had a daughter named Caroline. Caroline moved from Maryland to Philadelphia. She had a daughter named Vivian. Vivian married a Spanish-speaking Cuban immigrant named Cicero. They had a daughter by the name of Ida. Ida met and married James Johnson. They had a daughter by the name of, they had a son by the name of Jamal. Jamal married Barbara. And on August the 21st, 1974, the anniversary of the Haitian Revolution, the Nat Turner War, the George Jackson assassination, and the Fred Douglass Umar Johnson was born. Marcus Garvey said, without confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life. With confidence, you have won even before you have started. Marcus Garvey was asked, are you an African or are you a Jamaican? Are you an African or are you a Jamaican? And in response to that, His Excellency, the Provisional President of Africa, leader of the largest black organization in modern history, said, you ask me, am I African or am I Jamaican? I respond by saying, I would never, ever give up a continent for an island. I am African, yesterday, today, and for all time. Knoxville, Tennessee! Number one, talk to me and I will repeat it.
I don't have a question. I just want to personally thank you because it was you that gave me the courage, the knowledge, and the strength to get my son off of ADHD medication and get him out of public school, get him homeschooled.
One love. Who's my number two? My brother.
I was going to ask about, you was talking about Garvey taking back Africa, but what about Gaddafi? I know I watched Hidden Colors and you touched on that.
Here's my issue with President Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. He did some good things. It was about Pan-Africanism and Gaddafi and taking back Africa. Muammar Gaddafi did not start identifying as a Pan-Africanist until the past decade or so. Me personally, I do not consider him an African. I consider him a descendant of the invaders of Africa, the Arabs who took over North Africa. You understand? I believe that he did some good things, but I don't believe he did them for good reasons. I think Gaddafi wanted to position himself as emperor of Africa, and he was moving in that direction. Now, why did America murder Gaddafi? It had nothing to do with terrorism. What he was doing, which was good, he was about to create a central bank of Africa that would have tied the resources of Africa to its money. Africa is the richest continent in the world. If you tie the resources of Africa to the money, guess what that does to the American dollar? Guess what that does to the... It was economic revolution. That's why they got him. So I commend the good things. I don't step on his name. You understand? But I do believe there was a lot of opportunism in his actions. Who's my number three? Right here?
Yes. I would like to ask this question. As you know, that Knoxville has got a lot of recognition over the death of Xavier Dobson.
Yes.
Okay. And
that was a police murder, right?
No.
Gang murder.
It wasn't gang murder. It was not gang murder.
Okay. It wasn't gang murder. Follow up on that, by the way. The thing is that why, can you tell me why we as a black people, our groups and organizations that should be in place to help our young black males or men, why do we cherry pick the good kids or we wait until it's too late to help? Why is it that we always take the ones on the top and leave the ones in the middle on the bottom behind because we say there must be casualties?
Because we don't have any commitment. You understand? I say you judge all black people by 5 criteria. You judge all black people by 5 criteria. I don't care if it's me, Minister Farrakhan, Cornel West, Michael Eric Dyson, anybody. Dr. King, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Lewis, whoever. Number one, courage. Do we have the courage to speak truth to power? Do we have the courage to confront racism? A lot of black people could talk black talk in a room like this, but they can't talk in the chambers of Congress.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Courage.
sir.
Number two, consistency. Because we have a lot of opportunists in our community. We got people who like to look black and act like they care because there's $1 at the end of it for a certain job. Do you understand? Consistency. Is Umar Johnson consistent or is he constantly switching up what he stands for? Watch that. Okay? Third thing, creativity. What are they doing to help black people? Are they just talking? Because I'm not in this just to be no voice. Yes, I'm the most requested black scholar in America.
Go ahead.
I'm probably the cutest too.
Go ahead.
Okay? What are you doing? I'm trying to buy a school. I got the college tour. I got the parent network. I got the National Independent Black Parent Association, which I did not talk about. If anyone wants to help organize the Knoxville chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association, you have my cell phone. Please text me. We need a special ed committee, discipline committee, policy committee, finance committee, social support, homeschooling, and parent advocacy to organize our parents to fight for change in the schools.
Right.
Next, courage, consistency, creativity. My ADHD is setting in. Courage, consistency, creativity. I got to get back to you on the other two. But there's 5 factors. Commitment, courage, consistency, creativity, commitment, And I forgot the last one. I'll give that to you. But you got to evaluate us. Black people suffer from the white Jesus complex. We always looking for a savior to come in and save us while we keep on eating wings and smoking. Not all of us, but we want people to save us while we don't do nothing to save ourselves. Church messed us up. Listen, stop praying for leaders and build your leaders. In Israel, they're not praying for no leader. They got academies where they groom them. In America, they got universities where they groom the leadership. Military where they groom. Nobody is praying for a leader but black folks.
That's right. That's right.
So y'all can blame one man for what you didn't do for yourself. Put Umar Johnson up on a pedestal and make me the scapegoat for your own lazy inactions. I don't think so. I'm not trying to be a leader. I'm an organizer. That's it. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, in his classic book that everybody needs to read, Miseducation of the Negro, he said we don't need no more leaders. We need servicemen and servicewomen. People who are going to do the work, not lead. That ain't nothing but ego. Okay? But it's the commitment. That's why we need the school. Because until you change the thinking of black people, you can't change black people. And the best way to change the thinking is to raise the kids the right way. See, we ignore the kids and focus on the grown folk. Focus on them babies. So in 20 years, we got a whole new collective consciousness, and then they will commit themselves like they're not right now.
That's right.
Also, if you want to work at the school, send me your resume. FDMGresumes@gmail. FDMGresumes@gmail. We need teachers, but we also need nurses, counselors, social workers, secretaries, security guards, lunchroom staff. I need sisters who know how to do natural hair. I need people who know how to do vegan and raw food. Our food is going to be 80% raw and vegan. We need people who know how to deal with animals. We also need folks who know how to farm, because we're going to have a farm. And guess what? I need a couple white folk there, because if I don't, they're going to close me down. Send me your resume. Send me your resume. FDMGresumes@gmail.com. Thanks for that question, beautiful. Who my number 4? Yes, sir. We going up to 6. This is 4 of 6. Yes, sir. Talk to me, little brother.
Okay, hold on.
Take your time.
Okay, but I got a comment. Okay, so we have Black History Month here in our school, but they say, I asked the principal at my school why it's just Harriet Tubman and other, like Harriet Tubman, the same people every year. I'm not trying to belittle them or ostracize them or anything, but we only teach what they teach us, and we need it. And then I see people like saying all the school systems letting us down, the school systems doing this, doing that, yada yada yada. We need, instead of working on these instead of asking these white people to help us, the same people that put us in slavery, we should be helping ourselves.
That's right. Yes, sir, that's a baby Garveyite. That's a baby Garveyite. Bruce myself.
I mean, in Africa, when you call Africa is not the name of Africa. Africa was named by a Greek person, Scipio Africanus. All right. And then he called it Africa. Before that, it was called Ethiopia. In the old maps, they called the the ocean near Africa, the Ethiopian Ocean. And now we ask these rich white people that work in these school systems, can you please help my child? And my child's falling behind in his schoolwork. My child's doing this, my child's doing that. We need to help ourselves.
Here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say to my young brother, and that is this. Number one, I commend you. Very well spoken, very articulate. Shout out to your parents and the community that raised you. I love that Garveyite spirit in you whenever you hear self-determination as Garveyism. 2 things. Number one, the month of February. The month of February was chosen not by white folks. It was chosen by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who was one of our first African scholars to get a doctorate from Harvard like Du Bois. He was a good friend of Marcus Garvey. In fact, Black History Month was first celebrated in 1926 while Marcus Garvey was in jail. Okay? He chose February because it included the birthdays of both Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Now, you and I know that Abraham Lincoln was no friend of black folk. But he did that because in order to get it approved and accepted, he had to play a little bit of strategy. Now, hold on, listen. I want you to listen. He said that February would be the month where we intensify our struggle of self. Did y'all hear what I just said?
Yes.
February is the month where we intensify. It is not the only month to celebrate your history. I was raised as an Orthodox Sunni Muslim by my father. In Islam, there's the month of Ramadan, where you intensify your faith. But you practice Islam 365 days a year. That's the same approach that Dr. Woodson had for Black History Month. He didn't get it from the Muslims. I'm just drawing a parallel. He said we should study who we are all year long. But every culture has a climax. And February should be the climax of our study. Also, you spoke about Africa not being the original name. I do want to correct you. And I do know that some scholars have put out misinformation.
What you do?
One second, y'all. My brother, Africa, and I need everybody to hear me. Africa was one of the original names for the continent. The word Africa means the birth of man. This science comes from Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, one of our greatest Egyptologists. Africa also has another name. It represents 3 ancient Kemetic phonemes, Af, Ra, Ka. Af means from, Ra means God, Ka means soul. The word Africa means I come from God's spirit. It is an indigenous name. Just like Ethiopia, just like Tamari, just like Alkebulan. Africa was never called one name. Depending on the culture, that was the name that they imposed. So there's probably about 50 different ancient names for Africa, but Africa was one of them. You got me? All right. Well said, though.
Also, I need to because a couple years ago you came to the Vet Cultural Exchange Center. I'm not sure if you remember this.
Yeah, my first time in Knoxville, my only other time.
At the time, I was like, this 3 years ago? So I was like 9 or 10. I came with my mom, and then I'm not sure if you remember this, but you gave me your book, and you signed the inside of it. And you said the next time you come to Knoxville.
Next time I come to Knoxville.
You want me to come over here. So I came over here. So now I want to talk to you when you come back.
Okay. We're going to wrap. Yes, sir. I love it. I was crossing my fingers. I said, Lord, did I tell him I was going to give him $1,000 when Who my number 5? We got 2 more. Number 5? Yes, sir. 5 and 6, and then we're going to do our line. Strong. Ain't he strong? I need him on my Black Boy College tour, too.
This is not a question, but it's a comment also. A statement I want to make.
Yes, sir.
For those of you that are not native Knoxvillians, Knox County School Superintendent position is still vacant.
They will never give me that.
You'll never know.
I'm qualified, but they will never give me that. The purpose of public school in 21st century America is to prepare black girls for poverty and black boys for prison.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And I refuse to be a warden.
That's right.
That position is still vacant.
I might peep it out though, it won't hurt though. Who's my number 6? 6th and last one. Queen with the fro, love the hair, sister.
Thank you. What advice do you have for black individuals who plan on being in education in the future, and especially in regards to like training up?
Study all the great black educators. That's number 1. Recognize that the training you get is insufficient. Even the urban ed programs do not prepare you to work in the hood schools. You understand? But get with me. I got some books you can read. You can always lean on me for advice. Send me your resume for the school, because after they burn you out, I need you to come to me. Also remember this. The 3 R's of education is rigor, relevance, and relationship. Connect with your kids, then you can hold them to a high standard. If you don't connect to them, you'll never be able to hold them to a high standard. First the relationship, then make sure your lesson plans are relevant, and then the rigor. Also remember, the #1 predictor of success in the class ain't money, it ain't poverty. It's how much you believe in those children's ability to learn. You make the difference, not the environment. Good luck.